Good morning. I'm Liz Weaver, a college career and military readiness specialist with Georgetown ISD. Today we have the opportunity to hear from Todd Miller and Karen Slottick, who work with Maxwell, Locke, and Ritter. Thank you so much for joining us today. As we prepare for this time together, please remember to mute your microphone and maintain appropriate audience access and ask any questions that you have in the chat box. We'll make sure those questions are addressed in the last 10 minutes or so of the discussion. Teachers, remember you should have your class logged in under your name and displayed to the whole group, not have students logged in individually. This session is being recorded and will be available on the Future Readiness Week website within 24 hours. As I said before, we're excited to have Ms. Slottick and Mr. Miller with us, who work for Maxwell, Locke, and Ritter. I'll just turn it over to you two to tell us a little bit about your business and the wonderful world of accounting.
It is wonderful. Good morning, GISD. Hi, my name's Karen Slottick. I work as a certified public accountant, which you probably hear referred to as a CPA. I work in the audit practice of my firm, and Todd Miller here is he's a partner in our tax practice of our firm. So to summarize what a CPA does at a very high level, and a CPA essentially sells their professional knowledge and services to clients. So when you think of a CPA, I'm sure you've heard that acronym before. The first thing that probably comes to mind is taxes. I know when I introduce myself to someone for the first time, they immediately kind of go down the tax path and start asking me questions about taxes. And I'm like, oh no, that's, I know a little bit about that, but that's not actually my specialty. So there are actually many different things that a CPA can do. It's not just taxes. And I'll talk a little bit about those. But first, I think it would be pertinent maybe for us to tell you a little bit about Maxwell, Locke, and Ritter, who our firm is and how long we've been around. And so I'll turn it over to Todd to give a little history about our firm.
Thanks, Karen. So my name is Todd Miller. I'm a partner here at the firm on the tax side, and our firm is referred to as a public accounting firm. So CPAs can work in all different industries. You can have businesses that have their own kind of internal accountants, and then you can have firms like ours, which we basically serve other clients. So we serve individuals, we serve businesses. We started our firm in 1991. We were very small at the time. We only had 13 people that were part of the firm. We've grown tremendously. Now we're up to 140 folks here at our firm. We have two offices. One is downtown Austin on Congress Avenue. It's the Frost Bank building. And then we also have an office in downtown Round Rock. So of the 140 folks, about 85% of them are in our downtown office. And then the balance of them are here in our Round Rock office. As far as services that we offer, so as Karen mentioned, she's in our audit practice, and she'll tell you a little bit about what auditing refers to. So we offer traditional audit services. We also offer tax services, and the tax services we could offer are both for individuals, which is probably what you hear about the most, is folks filing tax returns to report their income and pay their taxes to the government. But businesses also file tax returns, and so we also work with the businesses to help them. We also have a wealth management side of our firm, which is a little unique in the public accounting industry, is most accounting firms don't have a wealth management side to their practice. So that is something that kind of differentiates us from our competition. But we as a firm, given our size, we're bigger than a lot of your smaller CPA firms that you may see there in Georgetown and other areas. And so our clientele are typically bigger businesses, bigger entities, individuals that may have a little bit more complexities than just needing a tax return filed. So we we really focus as a firm on helping our clients not only just meet their obligations from a tax reporting standpoint and an audit standpoint, but also just being overall business advisors for them. So having an accounting degree and a business background kind of helps us help them make their businesses successful. So that's kind of what we pride ourselves on, is we're not just here to, sit at our desks and file, tax returns or fill out papers. We're actually trying to help our clients manage their businesses. We want them to call us and kind of ask our opinions on what they need to do to have a successful business. And so we take a lot of pride in building really deep relationships with those clients to make sure that they're being successful in what they're trying to do. And in turn, that's what they pay us for, is for our knowledge of not only just keeping them meeting the rules and requirements of what they need to actually file with the governmental entities, but just also running their business overall. So that's kind of who we are. As a firm, like I said, we have about 140 people. We've got 18 partners, and then the balance of our folks are our associates. And we all function as a team to operate. And we've grown tremendously, and we plan to continue to grow. So that's a little bit about who we are. Karen, did you want me to give any more on the tax specific side, or would you like to take back over?
No, I think that's good. You gave a good overview of how tax works. So I'll tell y'all, I'll take over and tell you guys a little bit about auditing. So I am an audit associate is my title. I have been working as an auditor for about 11 years. I've been at MLR for 5. And a lot of people are I wouldn't say confused, but don't totally understand what an audit is. And that word is scary to a lot of people. And I always tell them, we're not that scary, I promise. But basically an audit is a certification that an entity's financial records are fair and accurate. So there are, for lack of a better word, accounting laws that businesses are supposed to follow. And so we come in and we help our clients make sure that they're adhering to those rules. And there are different reasons why an entity might need an audit. So if you're a for-profit company and you want to get a bank loan, the bank is typically going to require you to submit financial statements that have been certified by a CPA. And so that's what we do, or what I do. I provide that certification so that they can use that report to get bank loans or to attract investors, stuff like that. We also perform audits for nonprofit company or nonprofit entities and for governments. And we actually, I'm on maternity leave right now, but I actually do the audit for Gerogetown ISD. So several of you are familiar names and faces on here, but the reason that the school district has to be audited is because they receive money from the federal government and they receive money from local taxpayers. And whenever that happens, there's a requirement that an independent CPA come in and certify that they are handling those funds appropriately in accordance with the rules, and they're not committing fraud and things like that. So that's kind of what I do. And as Todd mentioned, we also, throughout that process, we make sure that they're adhering to all the rules and laws and regulations. But we also make recommendations for how a business or an entity can best be run. If we see areas where improvements can be made to help them be more successful or to make things easier for them, we help them with those as well. And as Todd mentioned, the third service line that we really offer at MLR, so we've got tax, we've got audit, is wealth management, and that's basically exactly what it sounds like. So we have a group at our firm that provides financial planning services and investment advice. And those are our clients under that umbrella are typically individuals and their families. Let's see, Todd already talked about our offices. We just to tell you a little bit about how we're different from other public accounting firms in the area. So we're the largest locally owned firm in the area. There are some bigger ones. You may have heard names like PricewaterhouseCoopers and KPMG and Deloitte and Ernst & Young and things like that. So those are big global companies that have offices in many different cities. Maxwell, Locke, and Ritter, we are local. We only have the 2 offices in Austin and Round Rock, but we're actually, in terms of the number of CPAs employed, bigger than a lot of those big boys that I just mentioned. So we're kind of in the middle. I guess I would describe like the PricewaterhouseCoopers and KPMGs. Those are the big boys. We're in the middle, and then you have a lot of smaller local firms. And at each of those levels, you have different clients. So if you're thinking about a career in public accounting, that's something that you want to think about, whether you want to work for a big international firm or you want to work for a smaller local firm that is working with locally owned businesses. And there are pros and cons to each. Both Todd and I can tell you that because we've both worked for the big one, and then now we work for MLR. So that's something to think about if you're considering a career in public accounting. I think, let's see, I'll talk a little bit about, maybe Todd and I can each talk about our typical work day. So right now, as you can probably see from my background, I am working from home because of COVID. That's what a lot of us are doing right now. But during my typical work day, pre-COVID, pre-working from home, I'd be in my office in Round Rock. And during the day, I will talk with and meet with my clients. And so sometimes that means I go to their business and meet with them. Sometimes that means we have lunch together. Sometimes that means that my clients come to our office and we meet there. Sometimes we talk over the phone. But I'd say that's probably 60% of my day is talking with my clients. And then I also spend a good deal of time talking and meeting with my coworkers. So we talk together about issues that we've encountered on our different clients and help each other problem solve what the right way to solve that problem. I provide coaching to people that are newer to the firm or don't have as much experience as I do, which is something that I really enjoy. And then the rest of the time I spend working alone on my computer, just getting my work done. So Todd's role is just a little bit different because he's a partner. So I'll let him talk a little bit about his day. You want to share that, Todd?
Sure. So it's going to be a little different from my perspective on what I do. And again, this has all changed given the recent environment with COVID. But typically, we on the tax side kind of we have different quote unquote seasons. So right now we're in what we refer to more as our tax busy season, which means we're doing a lot of work behind our computers to help our clients meet their filing obligations with the Internal Revenue Service. So right now there is a lot of computer work. There's a lot of work just done more behind the desk. When we get outside of those filing deadlines, which we have a big one coming up on October 15th, once that's done and all our clients have met their filing obligations, then my role shifts more to relationships, and that's relationships with our clients. As I mentioned, we really help them try to manage their business. So we're going out, meeting with them, going to their sites, talking with them about what are they seeing in their business? What are they seeing in the industry? What problems are they facing? And how can we help them navigate those? A lot of that is done in person, just because we like that in-person touch. So it's not, we get the misconception sometimes that accountants and CPAs just sit behind our desk. And I don't think that's entirely true. I think now it's a lot more relationship driven. both with our clients and then with our people. So part of my responsibility now is managing our firm and managing our people and making sure that our staff are getting what they need to be successful, and visiting with them on how is their year gone, and what can I do to support them. So we kind of have our business on the tax side is very cyclical, and it's somewhat similar, I would think, on the audit side. But we do have our time when we spend a lot of time behind the computer, behind the desk, doing busy work. But then we also have our time when we're out and more getting away from the desk and talking to clients. My role in particular is an oversight role, both technically and just process management, to make sure that technically we're doing things correctly, that we're following the Internal Revenue Code, and it's to keep our clients, number one, from doing anything to get them in trouble, but also helping them minimize their tax bills. Ultimately, that's what they're all wanting to do, is take advantage of the tax code to the extent they can, and that's what we're here to help them with. The tax code is very, very complex, and it changes rapidly every time we have an election. The various parties that control the government have different ideas on how the tax code should look. So we're constantly keeping updated with those, and doing trainings and additional education just to make sure we are keeping up with all the changes, so then we can help our clients with how that is impacting them. So it's a lot of busy work behind the computer, but it's also a lot of just getting out and meeting people and talking to people and really becoming an advisor and a friend to our clients. So there's a healthy, I think, balance of both in our industry.
And Todd made a good point out there whenever he was talking about changes to the tax code. So another thing that we spend a lot of time on, I think the tax people probably more so than us auditors, is continuing professional education, and we call that CPE for short. But for any CPA that's licensed in the state of Texas, you have to have 120 hours of continuing education every 3 years. And we frequently get a lot more than that because we have to, just to keep up with things that are changing, especially tax laws. And now with COVID, there's a whole bunch of new governmental regulations that are coming out. Companies are getting money from the government, and we have to understand what the rules are and help them account for that correctly. So we spend a lot of time keeping up with current events and educating ourselves. So I think that's all I had in my official presentation. Todd, unless you have something else, so we may want to open it up to questions now.
Yeah, we can open it up to questions. I think it might make sense just for us to touch a little bit on just the various types of degrees and advanced certifications that we all can get in the accounting field, because it's very broad. So you typically hear accountant and you think CPA or certified public accountant, and that is the most common certification or designation that an accountant is going to get. You can go to a 4-year university or even just a 2-year associate's degree with some form of focus in accounting, but in order to get the CPA designation, there's extra requirements that have to be met. So you'll get a 4-year bachelor's degree at a university, and then in order to take the exam, so there's a separate exam to get certified as a CPA, you have to have additional accounting coursework. So typically those that are going to take the CPA exam not only have done their 4 years, but they typically will go and do an additional 2 years and get a master's degree. That is because in order to take the exam, the AICPA, which is the American Institute of CPAs, requires 150 credit hours. So there has to be additional schooling that is done in order to qualify to sit for the exam. Once you've met those credit hours, then you're allowed to take the exam. And it was different in my time when I took it, but there's different sections of the exam. So that it's going to cover It's going to cover tax law. It's going to cover auditing. It's going to cover different regulatory responsibilities. So once you've met those credit hours, you take this exam. Now it's all moved online. It didn't used to be, but now it is moved online. And then if you pass the exam, and you can pass certain parts of it, and then continue to take the other parts until you passed it all, then you can get what's called a CPA designation. Every state has their own governing board that issues these certifications. So the state of Texas issues our CPA designations. If we were to want to move to a different state, we would have to get certified in their state. Does that mean we would have to go take another test? Not necessarily. A lot of the states have what's called reciprocal designations, which means if I move to California, my Texas certification, as long as I give them some additional information, can carry over to California. But each state is going to govern how that works. The CPA designation is the most typical that accounting graduates will get, but there are many, many others that you can pursue. My client base, I also serve clients in and their estates. So I have an estate planning certification as well, which means I took additional coursework and then took another test to become a specialist in estate planning. There's others there's a certified financial planner, which is going to be more financial planning for clients. So there's all different designations that you can get under the kind of accounting or business umbrella. But the good thing about pursuing an accounting degree, and I think the most important thing, is it really sets you up for success in a lot of different areas. If you want to be a business owner and maybe you want to own your own small business, having that accounting background is tremendous. It's going to help you because running a business is part of that is making sure financially that it's set up for success, which means creating financial statements and understanding how your employees are going to be paid. So even if you have a desire long-term to be a small business owner, and it may not be in accounting, it may be in a different field. Maybe you want to own a restaurant, or you want to run a gym, or any of those types of things, having an accounting background can be extremely beneficial when it comes to that. Does that mean you need a CPA designation? Not necessarily. CPA's designation typically is going to then carry you into a field like what Karen and myself do, where you're actually helping clients specifically in our industries of tax or auditing. But having an accounting degree overall can be a tremendous benefit no matter what type of work you want to go into long term. So it's a very valuable degree and educational pathway to pursue no matter what your long-term kind of goals and aspirations are. So Karen, I think I just wanted to add that before we kind of go into the Q&A part is an accounting degree can take you in a number of different areas. Kind of the typical is getting that CPA designation.
Mr. Miller, we may have some students who, after they graduate, are interested in going straight into the workforce, or they might be interested in maybe getting a 2-year degree, but not necessarily pursuing a 4-year CPA degree. Mm-hmm. Are there any jobs within accounting, or particularly within your firm, that would suit kids that might be in that frame of mind?
In general, there would be. I think in a firm like ours, we typically look for, because of our size and where we are in the market here, I think we typically look for those candidates that have that advanced degree and the CPA designation. Now, for those that don't want to go to that extent, there are certainly different opportunities. You could go into a company and potentially work in their accounting department, doing various tasks that you may not need necessarily the overall CPA designation or a 4-year degree, but they will have different tasks and different roles that people can serve with just a 2-year degree, or just coming out coming out directly out of high school. So there are certainly opportunities out there for that. If you're looking to get into kind of a bigger public accounting firm and that's your desires, I think that would probably demand more of an advanced education in the CPA certification as well.
Okay, that makes sense. And if we've got kids that are in high school now, say a sophomore or junior, who's thinking about a career in accounting, are there some things, particularly courses they could take or things they could do that would put them in a better position to go into that in college?
Yeah, I think, I think the schools are going to offer anything that you can take that's going to be in the finance world. So if you've got courses there through the school that are going to teach you about personal financial planning or doing, balancing checkbooks and doing all kind of things like that, just to get kind of the basic terminology. The big thing in the accounting world, as well as other, other professions, is high school is really preparing you how to learn, and how to get that, and how to study, and how to figure out how to solve problems. And so, but there are courses specifically that are offered that kind of build that framework, because once you get into the universities and then doing the CPA designations, it gets very specific in certain areas. So you want to have a good foundation to understand what a financial statement is, to understand what the government is and what the Internal Revenue Code even is related to understand why as businesses and individuals do we file tax returns? Why do we pay taxes? To kind of understand that framework, I think, is important, because then it starts you off on the right foot of understanding, okay, now I know why this has to be done. Now let me go learn how to do it.
Okay. And if a student goes through college, gets a 4-year degree, and is working on passing the CPA exam, when they go to work for a firm, just in the industry in general within this area, what kind of salaries would they typically be looking at, like starting out and then maybe on down the road as what I consider like a career level salary?
Sure. So kind of starting out, you're going to look at it at somebody who, if they've obtained that CPA designation or have the advanced degree, I would say kind of a general starting salary for an entry-level staff is probably right around $50,000 as an entry-level staff. Then from there, depending on kind of the avenues that they're going to go through and what kind of firm they're working at, I mean, it's really going to be a broad range. But I would say somebody working in, for instance, a bigger public accounting firm like ours, if you're 8 to 10 years into your career, you're probably looking at 90 to 100,000. I would say is a rough range of compensation at that point. And then beyond that, it's going to go in a number of different directions. If you want to, take that out and then become like a tax director or an internal auditor at a company, or maybe you want to be a CFO, a CFO at a company, the salaries can increase dramatically at that point. So I think it all depends on kind of what that career pathway takes. But in general, in kind of the public accounting realm, I think starting salaries, especially at a larger firm, kind of like ours, are probably, the 45 to 50,000. And then, I would say a safe bet is once you get 10 years into your career, probably around the 100,000 plus. Okay.
If one of the things that I hear from our students a lot is the idea that maybe they want to stay in Texas, maybe they don't. If somebody becomes a CPA in a state like in Texas and they decide later that they do want to relocate to another state, how does that process work? Is it fairly simple to change states or what?
It is. And Karen, feel free to hop in. I'm happy to keep answering them if you want. But
you're doing great.
It's extremely easy. And right now, I mean, we've hired just within the last couple months, even in the COVID environment, we've hired people from all different states. So I've recently just hired a young lady from Atlanta who is wanting to move to this area. So her CPA designation is obviously in the state of Georgia. So, but there's some forms to fill out in order to get your certification transferred over to a different state. But the business world not only is becoming, very widespread as far as here domestically, but also internationally. Some folks decide they want to move to different countries, and having that CPA designation certainly helps. Is it going to be as beneficial if somebody moves to a different country to have a CPA designation? Maybe not. But all of the different business, especially our clients, are working internationally. They're having operations internationally, and so we're dealing with those issues very regularly. So right now for us, I mean, we've got, even though we have our main two offices here, we have folks who actually live out of state and work for us remotely. So that is, and so they in turn had to get their degree or their certifications transferred over to the state they're at. So it's not a hard process. It's very common, and it's something that's easily done and shouldn't be a hindrance to somebody choosing this profession. Is, well, maybe I don't want to stay in Texas, because the CPA designation overall is guided, like I said, by the AICPA, which is a national governing body. It's just that underneath that, each state has their own governing body as well.
Okay, that's good. Because I know there's some fields like law in particular is very difficult to move from one state to another.
Sure. Yeah, it is. And it's very hard to practice law, across state lines. You have to be practicing typically in the state you're in. And there are some issues that we face in that area. Depending on the number of clients we may serve, if they're in a different state, the state may require us to get some additional certifications as a firm to be able to practice in their state. But by and large, if it's a minimal amount of work we're doing for a client in another state, then we don't have to go to that extent. But there are some instances where we do.
Okay. So, and I'm sure y'all have heard this question before. How has COVID affected your business and the way you do your business?
Karen, you want that one?
Yeah, I'd say that the biggest, two big things really. One is working from home, and that means that we interact with our clients in different ways. So, whereas I said I used to go out to their companies and meet with them there and sit there, or we would go to lunch and have lunch together. Now we're doing it over Zoom, but it has been. That's kind of a double-edged thing. So while I would prefer to see my clients in person, it's actually been good because it's kind of forced my clients and it's forced us to get everything operating in an electronic way where it's very easy to share information, where we don't have to go there and look at paper copies of stuff. They can just share their system with us and we can get in there and look at it. And it has made things a lot more efficient in some ways. So I'd say that's the number one thing, how COVID has changed us. And then the second thing I already kind of touched on, but that's continuing education. So there are so many new programs and tax law changes and stuff like that are coming out of the federal government, that are coming out of the state government, grants from local entities, and our clients have questions about how do we get this money? What do we do with it? What are the rules once we get it, to make sure that we are using it how we're supposed to? How do we need to track it? And so we're doing a lot of continuing education on those programs.
Okay. Well, and okay, Karen, I'm going to ask you this question. If you could go back and talk to yourself when you were in high school, knowing what you know about careers now, and you could talk to your high school self and give your high school self some advice about choosing a career, deciding on that career path, what would you tell yourself?
I actually did not, I guess I'll say first, I actually did not know anything about accounting at all whenever I was in high school. So I grew up in a really small town, or it was small at that time. And that just wasn't an opportunity that was presented to me. And so I think it's really, really wonderful that GISD has all these programs where you students can explore all these different careers in high school and have some kind of direction. So I would encourage you to try as many different things in high school as you can, like as many of these CTE programs that you can possibly fit into your schedule, do it. I changed my major 3 times, I think, when I got to college. And that was because I didn't have an exposure like this. So if I would have had that in high school, I think I wouldn't have had to do that. I would have had some more clarity. So I think that's probably my advice, is to just try everything that you can.
That makes sense. Mr. Miller, how about you? What would you tell your high school self?
I think my story is probably very similar to Karen's. When I was in high school, accounting was not even on my radar because I hadn't been exposed to it. I didn't have opportunities like what these courses are providing for you guys. So I would probably tell myself, like I mentioned earlier, get that foundation. Just kind of understand what the general terms are referring to. Like Karen, when I went off to college, I was not at all looking at becoming an accountant. It wasn't until I sat on a course that's somewhat similar to what this is, where I was just being exposed to a lot of different things. And I heard about the accounting profession. I heard about the opportunity for jobs, if you get an accounting degree, if you get a CPA designation, that's a pretty good avenue of guaranteeing your self-employment when you come out of school. And at the time that enticed me. I didn't know what I was getting into, but I knew that if I could go down this avenue, that I was going to be set up to have a good career coming out of school. And so it wasn't until probably late in my sophomore year in college that I even started building that foundation and understanding just those basic terms. And so having the opportunities that you're having with a course like this they're tremendous because you're getting exposure to things and learning about things way before a lot of us did. And you may find that it's not what you're after, but you're able to do that at a point in time now where you can still look at other things as well. And so, yeah, absolutely. I would have wished to have had the opportunity and told myself to explore kind of what it means to be an accountant a lot sooner than maybe what I actually did. So.
Okay. That's really good advice. Do either of you have any last comments before we close our meeting?
I would just, not to try to sell our profession to you whatsoever, but just to maybe kind of hammer home like what Todd said, accounting is a very versatile degree. Every business, every entity on the face of this planet wouldn't be in operation without money. And so that it's a very key skill to learn how to safeguard money and properly account for it. And so I think that accounting is a very versatile degree. You can do a lot of things with it. And I'm very thankful that I have that. And in terms of public accounting, again, it's also a very versatile profession. So you work with a lot of different companies and a lot of different entities. So we work with tech companies, we work with food and beverage companies, we work with entertainment companies, we work with not-for-profit organizations, we work for governments. And so we see a lot of different businesses and a lot of different industries. And it's been a very good exposure, like a very good broad exposure to learn about what's all out there. And I don't know if I'm going to be in public accounting forever. I'll admit that. Maybe I will, maybe I won't, but it's been a good way to learn about, to really learn in depth about the companies that are in our area and what the opportunities are. And so I think it's really good for that reason.
That's great. Thank you. Mr. Miller, any last comments?
Yeah, I would kind of echo that and just say, I think sometimes you hear the term accounting or the CPA designation, and it gets a misconception as being maybe somewhat of a boring profession, or all they do is sit at their desk and, they wear a shirt and tie to work every day, and, that type
Stuffy.
Yes, stuffy is a good term for it. And it couldn't be further from the truth. Historically, maybe that was the case, but I think the profession overall has really changed. I'll say I've had the opportunity to work with folks here at our firm, with clients of mine that so my client base, I actually serve a lot of what I call high net worth individuals. And so that includes actors, entertainers, athletes that are out, that you're seeing on TV. and that you're hearing about in the news. And some of those are my clients. And so I get to go out and visit with them and have lunches with them. And it's not sitting behind my desk and just typing on a computer and filling out forms. It's getting out and working on teams with people and building relationships with people and really understanding kind of how they work. And, I think people really value their accountants in their lives because we're here to help them. They're off running their businesses and doing what they do well, but they know that there are things they need to have help with on the business side of things or the financial side of things, and they turn to us for that. And I think that's a good feeling when we're able to help them be successful. But in doing that, I've been exposed to a lot of really cool people and some really neat things and toured some really neat businesses. And so it's not, if you have the perception that an accountant just sits behind a desk, 5 days a week, it couldn't be further from the truth. So
That's really good. Well, we would like to thank Ms. Locke and Mr. Miller for giving us a brief look at Maxwell, Locke, and Ritter and the accounting industry in general. We truly appreciate your time and investment that you made into the future of our students at GISD. And this concludes this session.
Thanks for having us.